Good evening, everyone. It's Tom Sydney Bushnell, aka Numbers, here from Psych.Club and my new channel on YouTube, which is Top of Your Game with Tom Numbers. So I've got a gentleman that's very familiar with my audience that is always at the top of his game, and we're going to keep it as YouTubeish as we possibly can. Juanito, welcome to the show. How are you?
You might have already blown it just by using Juanito. They might even be stopping you from having that on now.
107. They might go for that as well. Although I've noticed recently it's been okay. So we'll just, we'll hope and pray.
It's all over the map. It's not actually seemingly consistent. So I don't know. It's just nature of the beast. We all know it. And so anyway,
it's rotational. It's rotational. I've noticed it. Just kind of it seems to haphazardly rotate around. So, how are you? You look like you're watching some volleyball.
Well, actually, I was for the listeners behind the scenes. We had intended to do this. I think 2.5 hours ago. Now is what we had scheduled, and I literally been on the phone since about 3 a.m. my time, and then
you were doing yourself a disservice. One, it was only an hour and a half.
Hour and a half. Okay, I lose track of time, but I've been up since about 3 my time to working on some issues, and I didn't crash last night till about 11 last night, working on some of the same stuff, and so we had some things that came up that are time critical, and I just had to get that to a place where didn't need my input for the moment. So lots of interesting legal stuff going on behind the scenes that I think will get sprung over the next week or so that will clarify some issues that are out there for your community and people across the world. And we're certainly struggling through. It's interesting, even on what we're doing right now. At first, some stuff might appear clear to do, say, in a filing or in the legal arena, and then as you dig into it, you get the yeah buts. And fortunately, there's a scripture amongst many counselors, there is safety. And so getting the opportunity to bring in, a couple of attorney generals, secretaries of state, governors, governor candidates, people that, are attorneys in high-end positions, to shoot holes in stuff that you're trying to do to make sure that you've thought of what's, going to pass legal muster, or even the courts in their current state, is so helpful. So you don't waste time. Things that seem obvious aren't sometimes as obvious as you would think. And so that was kind of the beauty of the back and forth, and honing down a legal strategy to a specific action as opposed to this all over the map stuff. It's not easy. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the legal process, and I also have a lot of respect for the ways that it's been taken in oddball directions. And you just have to, you have to live in the real world, or at least in that real world, if you want to stand a chance of getting anywhere. It's a process. And so anyway, that's where we're working at. And I think we've come up with some very important, worthwhile things that are going to happen very quickly on an emergency basis on some stuff. And so I'll probably get a chance to talk more later. But, the other thing is, here we are in the holiday period. People have family coming over. They're trying to get to grandma's house. I had somebody that was racing to get on a plane as we were talking, that, literally was packing his bag while we were talking and listening, trying to work through this stuff. I've been in that position myself a number of times. The willingness to, set aside the rest of your life and family and everything else to pursue this stuff is a hallmark the people that have come to the fight over the last many years, and have a lot of appreciation for that. It's kind of, there's no gain in it. It's acts of love that people do just because they love their country and want the right end to come to pass for us as a nation. So, and across the world, I mean, the impact to the rest of the world of what's going on here in American politics, you can't overstate that. The whole world is affected by what's going on here in the U.S.
Yes, yes. I've got a question, Juan. Something that's popped up between people that we know. I know one more than the other, but I'm aware of both. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. So there's a thing about the ELOHIM going around in the movement right now. I haven't watched the videos, and it involves Cliff High and Bo Polney and some others on either side. Now, I'm familiar with the name Elohim, but is Elohim some have been brought up to believe Elohim is good, others have been brought up to believe that it's not. What is the reality of Elohim? Is Elohim good, divine, godly, connected to Christ, or is it a fabrication or an inversion of what people may think, and is it not good? I don't know from what I'm hearing in the debate between different people, and just wondered what your thoughts are on it. What is Elohim? And
well, okay,
yeah.
let me just say this. In fact, Cliff High and I were texting between each other yesterday, and we do text on a kind of a frequent basis. Every few days we might have communication between each other.
Yeah.
And let's just start the conversation right there. I have tremendous respect for Cliff High.
Yes.
Now, why is that? We actually have different perspectives on religious things. He has a perspective that I have total respect for. And, I mentioned to him myself, even in our communications, I may not disagree or may not agree with some of the stuff that he says or the positions he takes. But he's very eloquent, and he's very reasoned in a lot of the stuff that he presents, and he's basing it on real materials. Okay, so he's a pretty good researcher, and he's got pretty good. Here's a guy that's been around for a long time, and he has a pretty good network of input to things that he's thinking or saying, and like that. So I think you have to respect not just him, but the crowd that he's pulling some of these thoughts together from. I actually find it very refreshing to engage with people that aren't just throwing invective around or understanding that they pulled together out of their, loose brainiac or something, but they're trying to have actually a more intelligent, reasoned conversation than you would normally think. Within, and let's say, as I say, normally within, let's say, a Christian perspective. I'm a Christian, and I've grown up around the scriptures. I've done extensive reading myself across the map, and so I'm fairly, compared to maybe a broad cross section of the country, even at a ministerial level, I'm pretty well read. With that in mind, I don't just go off half-cocked. I try not to, on stuff where some of these questions come up. Now, Bo Polney, I've done interviews where he was there in the interview with I think Nino, and may have been somewhere else in there, and he's presented some of what he's seeing, believes is what God is telling us is going to happen. I have a lot of respect for people that have a prophetic perspective. And the scripture says, test every spirit. It even describes prophets that were doing things on behalf of, Baal or the devil or other stuff versus the good guys. You look at Hollywood. Hollywood is is acting like a prophet of doom and gloom and trying to get us to buy into that narrative. This movie that the Obamas edited is really kind of it's almost preconditioning to get you settled into a narrative of what the world's going to be, this dystopian world that they're almost prophetically forecasting for America and the world going into civil war. So I listened to a lot of stuff, and even from a remote viewer perspective, remote viewers will tell you that time is the hardest component to nail down. They'll see certain things, but they can't get you the timing precisely. And I've got a couple of people, one in particular, who consistently, I guess just to be, clear, one of them's literally on my staff and who's, was working as a asset within the American intelligence community. So not without credentials. With that in mind, a lot of times this stuff is just vague enough that, you kind of gotta look and see. Other times it's extremely precise. And especially when you have multiple people looking at something similar, it's uncanny. So with that in Cliff's bag and other things, he deserves to be respected. He's earned that. He's earned that with me. I listen to what he says from time to time and look at stuff, and I don't just throw it off, because it doesn't fit my way of accessing information. Okay. The same would be others, the people that are doing stuff with the tarot cards and other, I've talked about in the past, the Joseph in the Bible. It was his cup of whatever is reading the tea leaves or whatever, I forget what it's called. In the Bible, he had that stuffed into Benjamin's bag when they left to go back to their father Abraham, or to their father Jacob, from Egypt. And a cup of not dissemination. I can't believe I can't think of the word here. And but it was clearly an occult type of a practice where he's reading the tea leaves in the cup or whatever. And that was not biblical in the sense that we as Christians today would look at stuff. And of course, Joseph is the one that gave the dream and the interpretation to Pharaoh when he was a prisoner. Joseph's history from a genetic standpoint, and there does appear to be certain genetic lines that have greater access informationally to things in the spirit realm. And so the history of the Abrahamic line, which is the children of faith, Abraham being the father of the faithful, is that Abraham came from Chaldea. He was a Chaldean with these ability to tell the future, being the hallmark of that group. But he separated himself, went off and wandered the land that God promised him by faith, and that became Israel and all that sort of thing. But that whole thing started with the person that was in the, what we would maybe call the soothsayer type of a realm. And I apologize, that's for one of my critical calls, what I was mentioning to you there, an alarm. Did I lose you there? Are you still there?
Still here, Juan. Still here.
Okay. All right. And as I mentioned, I have people on something right now that I may have to break off on. That it's time critical. So if I do, we'll have to pick it up after the fact. But so the point is, you know, and just add one extra thing, you know, so I mentioned this just to kind of get in the zone with our listeners. Look, people in your audience know that I'm a Christian. We see things in a certain way. I remember Dorothy Allison, who was a friend. She was out of New York. She was a psychic. She had boxes, not a box, boxes of badges from various police agencies, intelligence agencies, both here in the U.S. and overseas, where she'd assisted in murder cases. That was kind of her specialty, especially involving children. And I had something in particular that I was asked to assist her on, or that she was asked to assist me on. I didn't seek her out. It was when I first met her. And she had a particular way she did stuff. She needed a piece of hair or something, you know, toothbrush that had DNA on it from the person that they were trying to seek out. And then she could hold that, and I would just, you know, put to you that the physics is actually based on real physics, that within the other physics that's not taught in the listed classes, that there is the ability to animate DNA, et cetera, and to access the Akashian file of, you know, memory, soul, whatever it might be, what I want to say it. And so she would say that she sees through the eyes of the victim their last moments alive on the earth. And occasionally she will see at that instant where what the person's body or eyes would see wherever they're at that moment. So I'll use this as an example. She had a case that was very famous. She, you know, there was all sorts of newspaper reports on, etc. Small boy, young boy was missing. I think it was in Minnesota, and land of 10,000 lakes. And she saw this boy in this reading that she did. And she had like 20 clues or something. And one of the clues was there was arrows, and that the boy could see arrows wherever he was at. And that and it was when he would be found. That was, you know, kind of this one key aspect. And she said that all the time, as though she could reach across time and see something. And that's why I say time is a tough component when you're in that realm, because you're in a relatively timeless realm looking at things. Then she had a couple of other clues. So all the people involved, because they're concerned the boy had been abducted, there's no body, they're searching endlessly for him as a young boy. They're being as diligent as they can. All the police officers, all the neighbors, all the churches are looking for this boy. And this clue of arrows, they're looking at every place arrows could be, and you know, places that sell them, etc., people that have them. You know, it's kind of a bizarre thing. Time goes by, and there's a boy that's getting ready to go hunting in the fall with his father, spring or something. I think it was spring or something, for his birthday or for Christmas or something. He had gotten a gift of a bow and arrow, and so he's in the backyard in this wintertime setting, playing with, you know, his arrows and a board, shooting it at it, and some of the arrows are going past the board out onto a frozen pond or lake behind their house. And so he sets his, you know, or shoots his arrows out, and they go past the target and they land out in the lake. And he goes out to pick up his arrows. And when he reaches down to pick up the arrows on the ice, up through the ice, he sees the face of the missing boy looking through the ice at him. And he drops his bow and arrows right there on the spot. He runs back, gets his parents, the police come by, the local reporters there, and somebody actually takes a picture of the arrows and the bow sitting on the ice right where the boy is while they're preparing to figure out what they're going to do to, cut the ice and take him out. And prior to that instant, you could not have used that clue to find him. It was a completely useless clue, yet it was a totally valid clue about where the boy would be at the instant in the timeline where he would be found. How could she have had, and I think it was the last clue in this group of clues that she had, it was stunning. How could you see that when that hadn't even occurred yet? How could you anticipate that in any type of realm? And Dorothy, when I talked with her, she's Catholic. And I would challenge her on the divine aspect of what she was seeing or how she was doing what she was doing. And it was her opinion that this was a gift from God. Her mom had it, her daughter had it. For several generations, they had this ability within the women in their family. And and she was very careful. There was something came up even when I was with her at one point where she was asked to do something, and she said, "I won't do that for these people. They're evil. They do horrible things or something, and I'm not going to assist them." And so she had some moral dictum that she was going by. We had a number of interesting conversations. Was I comfortable personally that she was doing stuff within the range or realm of acceptable, yeah, please, Christian practice? No. And I could spend quite a bit of time going through, scriptures explaining why I would have that opinion. However, the gift, the ability for me was absolute. I was with her. I was right there when it happened. We were looking at a location that she had done her 20 clues thing. And there was a street that was only literally a quarter block long. And she, this was an unusual street name within the county where this person had gone missing. And there was a series of clues. And so I'm driving her to this location. And along the way, and there was reasons why we knew there was only a certain range this vehicle the person was in could have gone, because we recovered the vehicle. We knew when she got gas and she'd written it down. So I just drawn a circle on a map and said, this is the range that vehicle could have gone. Here's the short side, here's the long side. And then within that bracket, which was really only a mile, 20 miles from the location where she went missing, was the extreme side. Now, it could have been she did several things along the way and it was way closer and we just didn't know it. But I had just put an outer perimeter to where the vehicle could have gone. And here was this unusual street name. And she has one of her 20 clues had given that unusual word or name. And so I just looked at a map and says, well, gosh, there's a street by that name in that county. And she's on the other side of the country. And when she did this, she gets on a plane, flies out. We're together the next morning. I literally pick up the airport. She'd never been in this area before. And we went to this person's apartment and then drove the most likely route out to where that street name was. And she said, well, there's the clue right there. She had a flying pig or something that she mentioned. Well, shoot, here's a butcher shop and there's a great big, and she had said, while we were driving, she says, like neon. I mean, it's just huge, it's a flying pig. Well, sure enough, here's a butcher shop on the way and there's a big pig up on the, over the building or whatever. And it's a butcher shop. And that's it. There was another thing where it's supposed to be by a police station. You could practically see the police station except for all this rubbish from where she's lying or was last at or something. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, the police station's like 5 miles away. So I just don't know what to tell you on that. And we're looking, and she's just an old hound dog, and she goes in behind the building that for various reasons she thought was relevant. And in behind the building is a big sign for like a private investigative thing or something like that, that was, clearly 30, 40, 50 years old and very decayed. And so the owner of the property came out and says, what's going on here? What are you doing? And she tells her she's looking for a police station. He says, and she asks him if there's a police station around. And he says, well, this used to be the police station, but that's like from 50s or 60s or something, and then it was sold to some other company, and one of the police officers had his business when he retired from this and did that, and had like a Sherlock Holmes hat and pipe and all that on the sign, and the spy glasses and all that. And so sure enough, here's a police station. You couldn't drive from there to where this short little street was, because there was an old railroad spur there, and other stuff in the river near, and she had water, and she had railroad and stuff like that. And I'm kind of like, well, that's pretty wild. Again, not in time. How could it hadn't existed when this girl disappeared as a police station? See, out of time. And if I hadn't had that guy walk up to us right then, I'd have totally discounted the thing. I wouldn't have tied, a sign for private detective agency to a police station. I mean, maybe you could make that stretch. Well, she saw it wrong or something, but she had a very precise thing, police station. And this guy told her, there's a police station. It used to be right here. This old guy that owned the property and knew the whole history. So we go around, we go to this thing, and the whole time she's saying, and there's the name of the killer. The name of the killer is right there in front of this house that we're going to, right there at the end of the street. It's right there. It's like in neon. It's just blaring. It's not exactly the same. It's just a hair off, but it's just a hair off. Well, what she didn't know, and I never disclosed it to her to that point, because I wasn't in the psychic stuff. We had determined that there was a particular individual who was in witness protection, and who we believed was responsible for this person's missing, because she was somebody that could expose he was involved in current criminal activity, even though he was, in witness protection or something. And so I had the name, and he had a nickname, but his real name was this long Polish name, unusual name. And I had been out to this location after dark the previous evening. And so I'd already kind of pre-scoped what was going on after I'd talked with her earlier. And I just wanted to go out and see what was there at this thing. And there's nothing. I mean, neon, and it would have definitely stuck out. And she's very adamant. She was talking about there's railroad cars and railroad track. We come around the corner, and there's actually, it's like railroad cars. It's like stuff you put on a railroad car. And she's getting more and more specific. Well, there was truck, semi-truck trailers that are the type you could lift on and off onto a railroad car. Sitting on the ground, there was like, 8 or 9 of them, not just 1 or 2, all strung out in a line. And she was saying they're spray painted with all sorts of names and stuff like that, like you would see with any rail car in the country. Well, but they weren't. They were boxes from trucks that somebody had bought and used for storage, and they'd set them out in this line off in this property, and it looked like, railroad cars. And I knew there was a railroad trestle that we could see from the police station, and I had noted it even in my stuff when I run by the night before. We come around the corner. It's only a quarter block long. It's like 2 houses on this street. And we get to the second house. It wasn't there the night before. This is early in the next morning. I'm saying, 9:30, 10 in the morning. We pull up to the house, and I'd been there the night before, probably 11 o'clock at night. We're pulling up to the house, and here on the front lawn of this house is a sign for somebody running for political office, and it's all in the bright colors that politicians use, the red, white, and blue type of stuff. And it's the person's name who I had gotten literally in those days faxed to me that morning. before I went and picked up Dorothy at the airport. And it was one letter off and completely independent. Nobody else in the world knew that I was looking at this particular individual for various reasons. And here is the name, one letter off, right there on the front lawn. And all the other stuff fell together. It was stunning to me. Now, how could she possibly have seen that? Again, even the sign wasn't in place when she did this reading the day before, and I reviewed it with her that evening. The sign had been put there out of time with her observations. And I can't, she even was very specific. It's one letter, or it's not exact. It's close to the same name. It's very, very close, almost the exact spelling. It was one letter off. So her clairvoyance, her connection at some other level, to me, was absolutely clear. I've talked before, and I'm sure most of your listeners have heard me talk about, Daniel, the angel that came to Daniel to tell him about the end times, walked across time like we walk across the street. Do the devil and his crew have the ability to walk across time like God's angels do? The angel of Persia that fought the angel that came and spoke to Daniel in Babylon, the angel over Persia didn't exist. It was 100 years in Daniel's future, 50 years in Daniel's future at the time he prayed this prayer. So it also helps show that angel he said he came from the end times, the end of the age, when the fate of Israel was going to be determined, which was the tribe that Daniel came from. So he walked across time back to Daniel, fought with the angel of Persia, which was ahead of him in time, Daniel's place, and then came to Daniel. Dorothy's observations clearly, in my opinion, were across time. That whatever way that she had of accessing by clairvoyance these things was, to me, for my observations, undeniably out of this world. Okay, not in the physical realm. Still, are you in any of these things like remote viewing, seeing the future and stuff like that? Is it from divine entities or evil entities you're getting that? The one thing I would qualify it with is, once you go beyond the veil, outside of three-dimensional time-space, you're in a very dangerous realm. The entities that live there have lived there for eons. If you're within the demon intelligences, says that the devil comes to kill, lie, destroy, and that he's the father of lies. So is he capable? He has, you think, oh, I know the scriptures and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, the devil knows them too. He knows them better than you do, inside and out. He knows all the matrices of numbers and things like that, tries to mimic it with various things to come up with lying wonders. So you're in a very dangerous realm. Are you protected? Are you prepared to deal with the level of intelligence? And do you have divine protection if you're there? Are you there under some kind of a divine calling? Dorothy would tell you that what she was doing was under some divine calling protection. But there's other scriptures that are extremely precise. We don't get our understanding of the future and things like that from lying spirits. And the scripture says, test every spirit. So can you be deceived with real information that's just a hair off or something? the information that was received by Dorothy for the boy under the ice, there was no clue that was there that would have helped you find him. It just showed you where he was at the moment that he was found. Have there been things that she would say helped to find people in some circumstance that they wouldn't have been found otherwise? Actually, yeah, she would make a case that that's occurred in her time, in the stuff that she did. So I come all the way back to, now we look at, for example, what, and I haven't read or seen the stuff that Cliff and Volponi both are referring to. So that has to be a qualification. I just, time I've been in the thick of it. Okay.
Yeah.
I just haven't had time to do that. However, let me just say this, as I understood it, and I'd love to read further. The question is, are the Elohim good, referring to God in heaven, or are they minor gods of some sort that Christians and others are misunderstanding, thinking they're good guys and they're actually bad guys? Let me use this example, and I think it might help. In the scriptures, we read Christ described as the Lion of Judah, and standing for good and right for God's people, etc. With that in mind, Lion of Judah stuff, how do we then reconcile that other places in the scripture talk about the devil comes as a roaring lion, seeking to devour, kill, destroy, etc. We have lots of examples of lions in a bad role. How can you have, both of them being reconciled? Well, there's a imagery there. There's a what's really being referred to. Look at the beasts in Revelation, and one of the beasts is lionesque, if you will. Look at Egypt with the pyramids and the Sphinx and things like that. Look inside the temple of Solomon, and around the upper edge of the temple, all around the temple, it's a half lion face and a half human face that is emblazoned in that upper border area of the temple. What's the meaning of that combination, and why did God put that in the design of the temple? What, you're putting the devil's imagery with the roaring lion in there? The lion represents a couple of things. It's majesty, power. It's, the king of the beasts type of thing. But there's a negative aspect with the roaring lion, right? By the way, why do lions roar? Most of the hunting by the lions is done by the lionesses, who go out, they get upwind of their prey, and then they charge them and they drive them downwind, where the big old lions are, but they still don't do the kill. They'll, still distract them a little bit here and there. They'll roar and they'll drive the prey into the mouths of the lionesses. And I said that a little bit wrong. Let me just correct that so it doesn't go out wrong. The lions will go upwind, and they will roar, scare the prey downwind to the lionesses, who hunt them down and track them down. And the lions will come in, and as the lionesses have control of them, they'll come and finish the job. But they're roaring lions. Why don't the big old lions participate in scaring the animals? Because their teeth are broken. As they get older, they break their teeth on the bones and other stuff, these animals, and it's harder for them to deliver the kill shot. So if you have a roaring lion declaring where it's at, it's usually because he's toothless and gumless, so the devil's trying to scare you into the attack. When the louder he roars, the more okay, don't run the other direction, because that's where the lionesses are to take you down. but it's just there's imagery of the king of the beasts and all that sort of thing, danger, predator, etc. My point being that now we go to the ELO, and and I think it's a book worth looking at, Book of the Giants. It's in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and there's been a lot of commentary related to the Book of Giants. It was accepted stuff in the scriptural readings for the Jews for century or more prior to Christ, and it was only a few hundred years after Christ that book and others were kind of removed from the accepted scripture for various reasons. But in some of those books, it talks about Cain. It talks about him going to the base of Mount Hermon, where the 200 fell to earth, which was the origins of Baal worship. And the city of Baal was built at the base of Mount Hermon. And so these 200 that fell to earth, were they descendants of Adam? No. Were they godlike? Yes. And what did they demand for their protection and things like that? They demanded human sacrifice. And so the humans would bring children to the city of Baal and offer them as sacrifices in order to have protection, safety, good crops, et cetera, and that spread out through the nation of Israel at a later time. So the contention of some, and by the way, these are fragments that have been pieced back together. Do we have a clear understanding of those writings? We got several people out there that have pulled pieces together here and there. They have an interpretation of what they're reading, et cetera. But, I would say that, some of their conclusions are at the very least open to, discussion or even criticism, because you got experts coming to conclusions that may or may not be as solid as is sometimes presented. But when Cain came back from Mount Hermon, there was new entities that apparently showed up. Did he call out people? Did he get some advanced understanding? Even the understanding that we have of Cain appears to show that he was Eve had sex with Satan, Lucifer, the devil, some godlike figure who was not of the line of Adam. We talk about prison planet. Christ said he saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven, cast out of heaven. Well, where is he cast out of heaven? Where did he end up? Earth. Is he of the seed of Adam? No. So was he somehow involved in deceiving Eve and conceiving Cain? And then Cain and Abel were brothers by two different fathers. That's what many of the rabbis believed down over time and make the case for. And by the way, you don't see Cain ever listed as the child of Adam in the lineage. And so that furthers that claim. With that in mind, if there was a being such as Lucifer, Satan, the devil, that was on the earth, did others follow? Are they of the watcher variety? Are they of some other celestial beings, other sons of God that fell to earth? They were created. They aren't God the creator. They're some created beings that are very real that find themselves on earth. That's the story of the 200 that landed at Mount Hermon. And by the way, in the current era, there's plenty of people that, buy into all this and believe it wholeheartedly, including the 13 royal families. They believe that they're children of Cain, descendants of Cain. They believe that they are part of that race or line of celestial beings that fell to earth at Mount Hermon. And they were all, in the telling of the story, they were all male. They could not procreate. They had apparently some ability to manipulate genetics. And so they took of whomever they desired of the earth women, descendants of Adam, and bred with them. And so that was the origins of these hyper intelligent beings, these men of renown. And when they had children, the children were giants. So they weren't restricted. Let's say when you have a horse and a donkey have offspring as a mule, then it can't procreate. You get good aspects of both of them, but there's no, second and third generation type of thing. In this case, they could procreate, at least for a period of generations, and the offspring would be giants. And we see giants all through the Bible. And they're not descendants of Adam. They're hybrids. That's part of the thing with the royal families. They don't believe that they're human. They don't believe that they're merely human descendants of Adam. They believe that they're more than human. They're hybrids. They're half-breeds, and they're have the right to rule by blood. That's why they're the Cains, or the kings of the earth. So now we come back to this question of Elohim. Is, if I understand it right, and I defer to Cliff because I haven't read this, and I will enjoy reading it at some point in time. I just haven't had time. Cliff has made a statement, if I understand it correctly, that the Elohim were baby eaters. Am I going to argue with that based on some of the writings and the understanding that we have? Actually, I don't think I can contest with that. I think that there's a case to be made that these Elohim, these God-like entities that in the Book of Giants are referred to as Elo, and I think some of the other writings add the extra, letters that have specific meaning. These Elo were, these God-like beings that descended at Mount Hermon. There's probably other places that it refers to something similar, but Elohim may very well be that they're referring even to the hybrids that might have come from these connections, or the genetic creations that they did, because there's, even going into the flood, there's this, perception that there were all kinds of genetically altered beings, that the DNA was so corrupted on the earth that you just had to wipe out everything. And that's why you had the animals on the ark that were pure, direct descendants without the genetic alteration, that you literally just had to wipe the earth clean of all this, altered genetic science that these creatures, look, if they fell to earth from heaven and they were created, they were probably actually a very advanced race. So we see all sorts of signs across the earth of a pre-Adamic history, even across the solar system. Even some of what we look at as being asteroids or rocks are actually parts and pieces of blown up space debris from prior history and generations. Especially going over to the moon and out to Mars and things like that. Look, the asteroid belt is a blown up planet. We did a project called Brilliant Pebbles, and I've read all the work on that, and then it was applied via computer to the asteroid belt in reverse, trying to get it back to an exact zone window when that planet would have been destroyed. And the stuff that is conjectured out there with Mars as a moon of that much larger planet known as Electra prior to its destruction. So there's some prehistory that we don't have the full knowledge of. The cities buried perfectly preserved in Turkey, ancient sites that predate Adam being planted in the earth. There in Tanzania, in a cradle-like position, Eden, if you will. There's all sorts of history that we don't have a clear understanding of. The only thing I would say is that from Cliff's viewpoint, are we talking about Christians in this current generation being deceived into worshiping falsehoods, a false Jesus, a false Messiah, that we've been conned into this false history going back to the time of Jesus, and who Jesus really is, Son of God, Messiah. And so we're all off on a tangent. And or is it some variations, the devil lying? One of the things is, even in the, I was just in Uganda the other day, huge church over there that, he had 200 people in the church before he went out and started doing what he was doing years and years ago. And now is, within the whole nation of Uganda and outlying nations, there's a very large church there, very healthy, I think. One of the things is they have, wheelchairs and canes and body casts and things like that of people healed in that church. That was a mark of the New Testament. The apostles preached with signs and wonders following. Now, I can tell you that, for example, with Dorothy Allison, there was signs and wonders, and I personally could not and would not even try to argue the validity of what I observed that was otherworldly in the way she saw, anticipated, spoke things. In the New Testament, in the Acts, there was people that had, that were magicians that did various things. And the Christians, those people came to the Christians and wanted to learn how they did the trick with some of the healing, someone blind from birth, being healed, things like that. There's a reality to the true divine side of the spiritual, and then there's lying wonders. And one of the marks of the end times, from a scriptural standpoint, is at the end times, the devil and his crew will show up with lying wonders to deceive even the elect, if it were possible. So there is a contest. And that's why I've even said, in some of the presentations I've done, and why I was so, really interested in what was going on, is that, 1 second here. Okay, put this, hold on, I have to reply to something. Let's see. I've got something I've got to go to here pretty quickly. Is there a true God in heaven side to what's going on? And is there a lying side? Is the Elohim that Cliff or others might be referring to, is it mimicking God in heaven with lying wonders, or is it the one that the Bible's truly teaching about? I think we have two. Just like you can misinterpret, or I don't know if it's misinterpret, if you could be misled personally. If you just give me a fresh one there, pour that out, I appreciate it. Thanks. Lion. Okay, so every time that you hear Lion of Heaven or Judah or whatever, that doesn't mean it's the good guy. A little bit more reading. Anytime you see Elo or Elohim, is it God in heaven, or are you crossing between other stuff? I'll look forward to kind of looking at whatever they're referencing and what the exact disagreement is at this time. I don't want to take a side on it because I haven't looked at it. And even if I do look at it, it may just be a fishbone that I'll have to consider. And I don't feel that I can come up with a personal exact correct answer to. But all of that to say this, Tom, there is deception going on in the world right now. The deceptions are in both the spiritual and the physical realm. In the physical realm, the deception might be faked situations that are actually being done in studios with green screens. Okay. And so you show the video digital deception and you realize it's done in a green room, and you're like, oh my gosh, things like Biden getting on a helicopter and the mic passing through the video image, totally faked. And not hundreds, but thousands of similar things. are we being deceived on some planet-wide mass scale, and who would be behind that? In the spiritual realm, if you think that mere humans by themselves are capable of seeing through deceptions by, entities that are in the spiritual realm, who may have existed for eons, who have incredible, knowledge, and are, very skilled in the arts of deception to manipulate the physical world to allow themselves to be present here somehow. You're dreaming. But from a Christian perspective, from my perspective, your only protection there is that you're on the good side, where you're looking for divine assistance. God in heaven, the true God, the creator of all. Okay. You can say, well, there's lots of gods. Okay. I say there's a God. There may be lots of subset gods, but there is a God in heaven. That God is completely perfect, without any shadow of turning. Okay. There is no angle that you can look at him where he has a hidden side of darkness. It says that the devil comes to us as an angel of light. Okay. He's trying to mimic the true God, and you can be deceived by this angel of light, but he does have a shadow of turning. He does have dark angles or segments. It's not, his nature is not perfection. The true God has no changing in that sense. He is not mercurial. He's not all over the map. Justice yesterday and justice tomorrow will be the same. Perfection is perfection. That's part of the whole point of Christianity, being washed clean of any shadow of darkness, any angle of sin, anything that would come against the true God being a sin, because you're at some rebellion with perfect. And then that we of ourselves are incapable of achieving perfection over time, except that God himself, who has injected himself into the situation. Jesus said, I and the Father are one. And the priests wanted to kill him for it, because he was saying he was God in man, God taking on human flesh like we put on a coat, and then coming and taking and paying the price of sin personally, so that we could be reconciled with him, just like sin entered the world through Adam and Eve, that perfection enters the world again. God stepping the way, taking the price, penalty of sin, separation from God on himself, and then allows a path of reconciliation through Christ the Messiah. So, I don't presuppose that, I'm going to convince people in an instant with that simple conversation to change sides or, agree to anything else. I'm just trying to get the two sides in the discussion that sounds to me like it's at hand. And some of the reasons why there may be people getting hung up on specific words and their meanings, how they're applied. And I would say that, most likely the discussion about Elo and Elohim, and then other writings saying that, he was a baby eater, or they were baby eaters, and then tying that to perfect God in heaven or Christ, the Son of God, that you're having the same discussion about lions, okay? Good lions and bad lions, and you have to do a bit more sorting to understand that just that there's a lion there is not a sufficient answer. There's more to the Elo and Elohim and all that. So I have, respect for Bull Pony and what he's doing. I don't follow it that often, but I've done a short show with him and interesting stuff, and I enjoy him. I have respect for Cliff and the more advanced nature of what he's looking at and why, and his history to get here. And he challenges my, I have to do mental gymnastics to, look at what he's saying and doing. I'm not going to toss over either of them overboard, and I'm not going to force them to see it my way. It's discussion. That's what reasoned men do. In this moment, with what's going on in the country and the world, the only other thing I would say is that we're in a fight to preserve Western culture. And there are people who are somehow tied to, vested in a position to destroy humankind as we know it today, as it exists on the earth, and to pave the way for evil entities to own and control the earth itself and anything left in the earth. And if they can't get there, to destroy the earth utterly. It says that at the time of the end, the Messiah returns, and all three religions believe this, of the Abrahamic religions, that the Messiah returns and must, or comes, at this crucial moment when, if he didn't arrive on the scene to save the world, save humanity, save the children of Adam, save the children of Abraham, all three religions descend from Abraham, Judaism, Christianity, and the Muslim faith. That if he didn't return come when he does, that the earth will be destroyed, that there's some doomsday moment where all flesh would be destroyed. All flesh, all the animals, all the creatures, all the humans, everything on the earth, it'd be a dead rock flying off through space. And so at that moment where utter destruction is imminent, like the destruction that destroyed Electra and turned it into an asteroid belt, that if the Messiah didn't arrive on the scene, it would be the end of everything. And that's this moment that all three are looking for. Is there deception along the way? There's a spiritual war. You can go through multiple of the books in the Apocrypha, stuff that's, the Book of Enoch, and see that there is some spirit battle taking place in the spiritual realm that Christians refer to, other religions refer to, and know is there, that I believe is absolutely real, that even Hollywood, with all of its little schemes, depicts in the breaking of the eighth ceremony, which is this hourglass type figure, the infinity sign, that is this infinite dividing point between the physical realm that we exist in, 3 dimensions, and the spiritual realm on the other side of the mirror, the inflection point, that is every bit as real, but the two are separated from each other, and through various mechanics, schemes, physics, etc., that can be permeated, allowing humans to access the spiritual realm and spirits to access the physical realm. That's what the image of the arch or archway is. Like Hillary wanted to speak in the Arch of Baal, which was a duplication of one of the archways that was the entrance to the city of Baal, where child sacrifice was practiced. I don't think the discussion is wasted. We're in a type of a spiritual battle, and if we have baby eaters amongst us thinking that they're getting power from demonic entities by any name, Elo or Elohim or anything, in this physical realm, and the sacrificing, the DNA of sacrificed children somehow animates them and gives them more power and access in this world, which is literally what the WikiLeaks emails and documents are all about, the spirit cooking, etc., that affected the 2016 election. Then we need to be on guard and to attack that with every power possible. And because much of the energy there is purported to come from the spiritual side, from evil entities, giving power and strength to people in this physical realm, then we have to be ready to fight it in the spiritual, not give it a place of entry, a toehold into our world at any level. And so having that discussion from different directions is not wasted time. And I would, accept the challenge of the conversation, the interaction to arrive at the correct answers in addressing that and seeing these entities' ability to interact in our world stopped in our time. Ages and ages have gone by, and these horrible evils have gone on unchallenged, or maybe challenged but not totally defeated. Needs to be defeated in our time, and that's our mission, our job. And if I have to converse with people with differing views, I accept that opportunity to have intelligent, reasoned conversation, look at what other generations may have learned in their lifetimes and how they successfully held the line, so that we can apply similar in our time amongst us. Is that am I saying it in a way that you're staying with me on there, Tom?
Yes, Juan. And something I don't know if we're going to commentary on it, but when you talk about the ELO, I keep thinking of Elon, but maybe we'll part that and talk another time on that. You mentioned about information, and that's made me think of it seems like there's a narrative being that there's a thread being set up in regards to Epstein and the flight logs. And Robert Kennedy has spoken clearly. He's been asked on Jesse Waters, I think, about it, and he's clearly answered and said, yeah, him and his wife and children were on there a couple of times. Is this, when I first saw that, I'm beginning to think this looks like a kind of case of, okay, we'll have one of our guys go forward, and then we'll let the narrative come out. So we let Trump get arrested. That sets the precedent for others on the dark side to be arrested. We've got this narrative with RFK and Epstein. Is that a classic case of, okay, we'll put one of our guys forward, and then we'll let the rest of everybody else get dragged into? Because it looks like that's going to be released. They're talking about 170 names plus being released in early January. 170 numbers is bolt of lightning, and I guess that would be a bolt of lightning if it's confirmed. There's been lots of names on lists going around for the last few years, but this looks like it would be an official list. Any commentary on that in terms of RFK and the Epstein flight logs and where we go with it, and are we going to see that released in January?
Let me just say this. These people want to cloud the lines. When we were looking at bank records in the Caribbean back in the 90s, there was lots of the bank records where there was accounts in the name of Ronald Wilson Reagan. There was accounts in the name of Chelsea Rodham, Chelsea Rodham Clinton. But unless you put the last name in the right way or something, you might not have seen it. And then it was arguable, is that, because they set those accounts up. No, I had one of the guys directly tell me, no, we put stuff in all those different names in case we had a problem. We could claim anything, and involved in the intelligence community, and so they didn't want to get slimed. If they started to go there, they wouldn't go there. They couldn't prove elsewise. There's the whole Epstein operation was a roping operation to try to rope in people that may be vulnerable to blackmail, but it doesn't mean that they were successful in every single one. They may have had a number of people that they got close and didn't succeed on, and they came back a couple of different whacks, but didn't quite get there. There's a saying, you can't con an honest man. So you try to set him up, you bait him with, $100 bills and stuff laying on the floor. The honest man is picking up the bill and going, hey, who dropped this? Who left this here? What's going on? The crooked guy is like, is there more? And so just because somebody's name appears on the flight log is not proof of anything. You had Bill Clinton trying to, use his name to bait people to come on down there, and then they'd, it's the setup like in the volleyball. I'll set them up and you spike it. And some people may not have been successfully set up because it wasn't in their heart to do that. Yet they were somehow there. Stormy Daniels in her testimony in New York on the
Daniel Storm, yeah.
On the guy, I can't think of his name right now. NXIVM. When she was testifying that, she said that she was invited to the island that is owned by what's his name? Owns Virgin Records and
Branson. Branson Pickle, Richard Branson.
Yeah, Richard. And so she was there at the end. Richard Branson was not there. And they were doing a recruiting thing, and she was shown snuff films.
Necker, yeah, Necker Island. Necker Island.
And so she
connect the dots on the name of that. Yeah.
Snuff films along with her attorney. She was shown these snuff films along with her attorney to get her into NXIVM. She didn't go there knowing what she was going to be baited with, if you will. And she did fall into that trap. How many people were baited but didn't go along with it, didn't agree to it? So she was roped in, really, to be there. She, purportedly had a drug problem with heroin like that, and so she was vulnerable. How many other people, Randy Andy, third in line to the crown, he was bringing friends, people around him down there also, and seeing the young girls, but bringing his friends also to, be baited. The same thing with Ghislaine Maxwell and her circle. And you really had three intelligence agencies: Mossad, MI6, and CIA / FBI, bringing people in or knowing about the people being brought in and baited in to get control of them for other things down the road, nefarious things. So, but just because somebody got on the plane doesn't mean they took the deal. They may not have realized what they were getting set up for. And so, but it certainly would have you have to look closer and think again, well, okay, they were on the plane, and then what happened? And were they somehow, being set up or blackmailed or whatever? That plays into this longer, bigger narrative. The only thing I would say in doing that, there's lots of revelations that are coming, and we'll have to weigh through them. But the information about child trafficking and worse is not, false. We know that. The question is just how deep does it go that we can prove somehow without any doubt. And again, part of the contention, the concern by certain of the players, I don't even need to mention their names, they're going to contest that some of the videos that are released are somehow green screen things that are totally concocted. In fact, I saw a report just the other day where the AIs are being trained to make child porn videos that, essentially are computer generated green screen type of stuff that looks absolutely real, using imagery of children and knowledge, artificial intelligence knowledge of how to position and things like that in a way that mimics real child porn, but it's all computer generated. Will some of the things that come out over the next months and through 2024, how will we prove what's real and what isn't? And I think ultimately we will, but there's going to be this huge contest within the public concerning that. And why would you want to try to fool people? Because the real stuff is not just sending people to jail, it's sending them to the gallows. And that's what's coming. But hey, Tom, I apologize to you and your audience. I have to break off. We have something that's critical in the background that I'm several minutes late to get into. And I don't want to be rude to those people. We're trying to fight through on something and prepare for it. And but I appreciate the chance to have the conversation. Always enjoy your audience. There's only a limited period of a week or so to get any of the Megador coins. The 2023 Megador coins will cut off the purchase on those in a couple of days, just before New Year's. And we will mint that with the 2024, but it's kind of a fun thing because it's an early adopter thing. And there's other stuff in the background I haven't talked about yet that's coming that will make having a 2023 one, I think, even more notable, desirable. And then there's the rest of stuff. All of that's over at gumroad.com. All Patriots at gumroad.com. And or at the Jennifer Mack. Got to put the in there, thejennifermack.com. And so I appreciate all of that, and appreciate a chance to talk with your audience. And we'll talk again soon. Does that work for you, bro?
Yeah, thanks, Juan. You left it on a little bit of a cliffhanger with how do we know what's real and what's not when it comes to 2024 and the accusations. And I guess we're going to find out. We're going to have to work through that.
We're going to have to work through that, and people are going to have to. The answers won't be instant, so we're going to work through that. But where there's smoke, there's fire, and some people are going to try and cloud that. That's part of the McAfee stuff. You know, I have this beautiful piece of art that Jennifer did of McAfee. That actually one of my friends who's a billionaire put it right behind his desk in the office. And he just loves that. He says it's one of the best pieces he's ever seen. It's just a fun thing, but also, you know, that has not gone away. You will see new info coming there. And part of the thing too is, by the way, is it only 31 terabytes or is it 33?
Yeah, I thought we were already a year or so ago. We were at pretty high, like it was going to complete, and then I didn't hear about it for a while. So I haven't really been following it that much.
Well, things have a way of coming of age. You're trying to see things that happen in time, looking out ahead.
I guess all eggs will hatch, won't they? All eggs will hatch. And in closing,
yes,
Epstein strikes me as a character that's been created. And that's subject to, it could have been agencies, but I have a feeling that maybe us good guys have used him as the biggest honeypot catcher of all time. But maybe we'll discuss that.
No. Epstein was a for real bad guy, and he was a creation of entities within the intelligence communities, not just one, collusively working together. Not just one location. It's representative of other groups doing similarly for similar agencies. Wasn't just limited to U.S., Britain, and Israeli. There's other groups doing similar stuff tied to other agencies, and there's a lot of crossover. But you cannot construe his actions to be something approved, because you have people in a three-letter agency doesn't mean that they're lawfully doing the work of that agency. They have access and opportunity, and they can be operating totally illegally within that position. You have criminals in office, criminals in these intelligence agencies that are using their access to proceed with criminal activity, and it's horrible for the good guys that get in there and are trying to hold the line, truth, justice, the American way. Yet they get smeared with a broad brush. You know, think of the movie DiCaprio, and a bunch of the people were in it here. the deceased or departed, the departed.
The Departed, yeah, with Jack and yeah.
And so you've got all these different players. Some are good and some are bad, and you don't really necessarily know who the good guys are because they're in there concealed. I dealt years ago with the wife of a friend. She had met him while he was in his cover, and they married. And I remember flying
Met
with
who?
someone.
Met who once? Met who? Sorry.
I'm not saying the name. I'm not saying the name.
Okay.
And I spoke with his wife. He had passed, and I spoke with the wife. The wife met him while he was in his cover.
Okay.
She only knew him in that realm. And I remember flying with them at one particular point, discussing that situation and how was he going to reconcile that he actually was doing this, was actually a good guy in a bad guy position. And he came to the conclusion there's just no way, because you'd never really unravel it. He just had to continue on, and he thought he'd live, hopefully to see the end of all of it. And in reality, died in the course of it. And she didn't know that other history. And even when, kind of confronted, well, but this and this and this, and you understand that was the role he was playing. He thought he was going to get free of it and be able to go enjoy what he had, etc. And it never happened. And so she had a perception of him, I'm sure to this day, that is not accurate of who he actually was. I think history someday, he should be a star on the wall over at CIA. But to this moment, he's known to the world as a bad guy. There's a lot of things that eventually will get revealed. Covers, well, why are you this? Why is there all this evidence of this and this? This is your history. Well, everybody has a cover if you're in that realm. It's got to look legitimate. You got to play dual roles, and you got to have stuff that back that up, that allow you to do what you're doing. And good and bad. And the longer somebody's in a particular role, the better that role might conceal something over time. And so within, say, the Epstein stuff or similar, even there's a few good guys in there that to this moment you might think that they're total bad guys. I've said it before, Admiral Rogers. If you had looked at him to get all the way to the top, head of the NSA, the most powerful intelligence gathering machine on the planet, arguably maybe the most powerful position on the planet in many ways. Was he a good guy or a bad guy? If you looked at him up to 1 minute before he rang the doorbell to go up and tell Trump he was being spied on and put the paperwork in front of him in 2016 after Trump won the election, you'd have concluded that he probably was totally in the bad guy's camp. He played a role right up to the last moment. So he had access, kissed up to all the bad guys. They probably had some stuff on him to allow him to get there. And then did the one thing that was nobody else could do. There is good guys in there. And Trump himself said he was invited to run. Who invited him? And those people have access. Have they been at it a long time? Did they put it all on the line? Was there others that came before them that laid the groundwork for them to be there? Their own version of the 200. Yeah, there's a lot to go, and some of those names will never be known in our lifetime. You'll know they're there, but you won't actually see them for various reasons, because there has to be a safety net. Anything goes wrong, there's got to be a viable force to still step in and take it on the right course eventually. So anyway, I've got to fly. Good to talk to you, Tom. I'm sure we'll be talking again soon, and sorry for having to step away, relatively shortly.
Thanks, Juan. Speak soon, buddy. Take care.
Right, thanks.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.